In today's video, we're going to talk about what's going to happen to the US housing market this year based on a number of different companies such as Realtorcom, Redfin, Zillow, and Fannie Mae. I'm also going to share some trends we're seeing right now to see which direction we are currently headed. Thank you everyone for joining me in today's video, and let's begin. I don't want to waste your time. So this is according to Zillow, just announced a couple of days ago. It says Zillow's latest forecast predicts soft growth for home values and existing home sales in 2025. So Zillow always shares a forecast for home values, not the median sold price. So home values rise modestly and existing home sales, which means excluding sales of brand new houses, increasing as well, but a softening growth rate. Zillow expects mortgage rates to decrease slightly in the near term and remain relatively flat for the remainder of the year. And by the way, in regards to mortgage rates, I'm going to share Fannie Mae's predictions through 2026 for home prices and of course mortgage rates as well. Let's continue. It says home values are projected to increase by just 0.6% this year. So 2025 compared to 24, home values to rise by only 0.6%. I made my video regarding Zillow's previous forecast. 1 month ago, they were expecting a rise of 0.9%. So home values still increasing, but not increasing at the same rate. On top of that, 2 months ago, they were predicting that home values were going to rise by about 2.9%, but now it's only a gain of 0.6%. At least that's what their latest predictions are saying. The rise in listings, in other words, people listing their house for sale, is fueling softer price growth. So of course, when you have an increase in supply, that causes downward pressure on home values. And then of course, because there's more supply means that home buyers have more options, and therefore that's not an environment in which home values absolutely skyrocket like we saw in 2021, for example. So it says this rise in listings is fueling softer price growth as greater supply provides more options and more bargaining power for home buyers. So in my marketplace, you guys all know I'm in Sacramento. On average, home sellers are getting around one offer. Back in 2022, this time it was about 6. So a very competitive market here in Sacramento, but not nearly as competitive as it was 1 year ago. I'm saying very competitive because also a lot of houses in more desirable areas, houses that are upgraded, that are priced right. Some our home sellers are getting multiple offers in the range of around 4 to about 8 offers and not just one. Every market's different though, right? So let's talk about on a national level, according to Realtor.com, right there. I want to share this because inventory is increasing, but on a national level, we're still lagging behind pre-COVID levels. So I love how Realtor.com shares 2017, 18, and 19. Redfin doesn't do that. Shame on you, Redfin, right? I really wish they would provide pre-COVID numbers on their weekly housing market updates. In any case, for February, the most recent trends we have from them is inventory is up by 27.5%. Obviously, great news if you're a home buyer, more options to choose from, right? Unlike what we had back in 2022, at this time, nearly all-time record lows of inventory levels at around 350,000. Now it's around 850,000. So big increase compared to 3 years ago. But also it's higher compared to any other year since COVID hit. So for example, right here is 2020, and obviously this is 2017, 19, and 2018. And below here is post-COVID. So we have more inventory compared to post-COVID, but we're still behind levels that we saw back in 17 and 19. Back then, on average, we had 1.1 million houses for sale. Now we only have around 850,000. Now, speaking of that, here is a really good article from ResiClubAnalytics.com. They provided a heat map showing what markets are a buyer's market and which markets are a seller's market. So a seller's market means that sellers have an advantage over home buyers. And of course, a buyer's market means there's a lot of supply and home buyers have a competitive advantage over home sellers. So this heat map, just kind of think of it this way. Any reading below 44 or below 45, I should say, is a buyer's market. And the areas shaded in red are a strong seller's market. Sellers have an advantage over home buyers. In contrast, areas in Dark blue, or is that aqua? I don't know. Aqua are actually buyer's markets. So I found this to be really interesting because areas that have a lack of houses for sale, this is much of the Northeast, also parts of California, are a seller's market, but a buyer's market are areas in much of the South. So for example, in New York, that is a strong seller's market. The index is at 85. Again, this goes up to 100 plus. So a strong seller's market has a reading of 70. Let me just make this simple for you guys. Of course, areas in orange or red are a strong seller's market. And of course, areas in blue and this aqua color are a neutral market or a buyer's market. So areas like in San Jose, California and San Francisco are a seller's market, whereas buyers have an advantage over home sellers in much of Florida, for example. And that is in Houston, Texas, more or less a neutral market. Same goes for Austin and San Antonio. Miami, Florida, also a neutral market there as well. And Orlando, also more or less a neutral market as well. Sellers also have more power in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We're also seeing that in Chicago, Washington, D.C., Richmond, Virginia, and the list goes on and on. In Sacramento, we still are a seller's market here in the region. So one of the main forces behind all this is this right here. This is inventory this February compared to February of 2019, pre-COVID. Obviously, much of the Northeast has a lack of houses for sale, such as Milwaukee, a decrease of 43%, Chicago down by a whopping 60%, and Detroit, Hartford, Connecticut down by 80%. So a lack of houses for sale. Let's look at Sacramento real quick. Sacramento, the greater Sacramento area, is down by 27%. And by the way, the national average is down by 23%. So approximately 23% fewer houses for sale this February compared to February of 2019. In stark contrast, let's have a look at Austin, Texas is up by 24%. So delta on that is what? 50%, 50 percentage points. So we should be seeing a decrease down by 27%, but in Austin, they're up by 24, New Orleans up by 21, and also Punta Gorda, Florida is up by 76%. Denver is up by 28% as well. And lastly, Phoenix, Arizona is down by 2.8%. And by the way, stay with me because I'm going to share other housing market trends and forecasts from other companies as well. So let's go back to Zillow's predictions here. It says existing home sales are projected to reach 4.1 million in 2025, a modest 1.1% increase from 24. I'll share how that compares to previous years, as well as these other companies' forecasts as well. As the home buying season nears, Zillow anticipates a temporary boost in sales during the spring, followed by a seasonal slowdown. That virtually happens every single year. Home sales tend to rise and peak in the late spring months, and then a decrease during the winter months during the holidays especially. However, it says with little relief expected from mortgage rates, I'll share that with you guys in a little bit, existing home sales are likely to remain below pre-COVID levels. Until rates fall to improve housing affordability, some downward pressure on home sales is expected to persist. So here's what I did for you guys. I do this for every Zillow housing market forecast. So again, Zillow's forecast is calling for 4.1 million transactions, again, for existing home sales nationwide. And that is an increase by 1% compared to 2024. However, it's barely an increase because we're going from 4.06 million to about 4.1 million. That's running up, by the way. So they're predicting that sales are going to be more or less flat this year compared to the past several years. So this means that for basically 3 years, we'd be at extremely low levels. Because again, last year at 4,060,000, that was the lowest level since 1995 or a 29-year low. So this year, more or less in line with a 3-decade low. The big picture here for you guys, if we get around the same amount of home sales this year at around 4.1 million, sales would be very, very low. Therefore, we'd be missing around 3 million transactions compared to long-run average. Based on my nerdy Excel formula there, the median number of home sales since all the way back until the year of 1989 is just under 5 million transactions. However, over the past 3 years, if we get to 4.1 million this year, we'd be missing around 3 million transactions. Just like last year though, a low level of transactions does not equate to a decrease in home prices. This obviously is going to vary by the area. As I shared with you guys, much of the South has a glut of inventory due to existing home sales, but also due to a lot of houses that are brand new that are for sale as well. That's causing home prices to be to either go down or put downward pressure on home prices, right? So a low level of transactions does not equate to a drop in prices on a national level, just like we saw over the past couple of years, right? So last year, basically a 3-decade low in sales, but home prices still rose by over 5%. So therefore, in order to have a housing crash on a national level, supply would have to far outpace home sales. And right now we're not seeing that on a national level. Okay, let's have a look at how this all compares to other companies as well. So Zillow is calling for 4.1 million transactions and home prices to rise by 0.9%. Like I mentioned 2 months ago, they were predicting a rise of 2.9% this year. Now it's only at a gain of 0.9%. This is likely from a higher for longer mortgage rate environment and due to an increase in housing inventory or housing supply. Redfin announced, and also Realtorcom announced as well, in December last year, Redfin called for in the range of 4.1 to 4.4 million transactions in 2025 and home prices to rise by 4%. Realtor.com is predicting a rise of 3.7% in prices and sales to be at around the same level we saw over the past couple of years at just under 4 million transactions. Fannie Mae is predicting at 4.18 million transactions and prices rise by 3.5%. All right, let's have a look at Fannie Mae's real estate market predictions for home sales, home prices, and of course, mortgage rates as well. So for existing home sales, they're calling for just under 4.2 million transactions. That'd be a rise of 2.9%. Then in 2026, a big increase up by 6.7. So they're calling for around 4.5 million transactions in 2026. By the way, that'd be the highest number of transactions since the year of 2022. In regards to home values, last year, home values, according to them, rose by 5.8%. Higher compared to the long run average. Home values tend to increase around 3 to about 4% year over year, but last year it rose by 5.8%, despite the fact that mortgage rates on average at 6.7%, right? And transactions fell to a 3-decade low. So just because transactions fall does not mean that home values will rise as well. Anyways, so home prices rise by 3.5% this year compared to 2024, then to rise by only 1.7% in 2026. So they're calling for basically this year and next year to be more or less in line with the long-term average, except for 26 to be a little bit below that, but home values still increasing, not decreasing. Now, one of the reasons why they predict that home values are not going to skyrocket like we saw in 2022-21 is due to this right here, or one of the factors. Of course, it's affordability, but also due to the rise in rates as well. So overall for the year in 2024, the average 30-year fixed rate, according to Freddie Mac, was at 6.7%. This year, they're calling for the average rate for the entire year this year to be at 6.8%. Then in 2026, to decrease to 6.5%. So because they're not predicting that mortgage rates are going to decrease greatly, like a lot of people were forecasting months ago, they're forecasting that home values will increase at a lower pace at 1.7% in 2026. And by the way, what really caught my attention as well regarding mortgage rates is that we're going to be around 6.5-ish, give or take a few points from Q2 this year through the end of 2026. So for example, in Q4 of 2026, we're going to be at 6.5%. So very little movement in regards to mortgage rates over the next couple of years. All right, let's get back to Zillow's forecast. And by the way, if you guys are still watching today's video, then please hit the like button. Also consider subscribing as well. Also, if you guys are interested in getting linked up with a great real estate agent, I have partner agents nationwide. you can check out my website, which is realestateteamfinder.com. I haven't mentioned that in a little bit. Anyways, let's get back to Zillow's forecast here. It says potential buyers are opting to remain renters for longer as affordability challenges suppress demand for home purchases. So in other words, because it's really expensive to buy houses right now, we have these affordability challenges. People are opting to continue to rent rather than buying a house. Zillow projects a 3.6% increase in single-family rents though. So if you're a renter and your lease is coming due soon here, potentially you may be paying more for your rent compared to previous years. We're just talking about national averages though, right? So they're projecting that rents are going to rise by 3.6% this year, and multifamily rents, such as apartments, for example, are expected to rise by 2.5%. So just taking a step back from this housing market forecast here, it's anyone's guess what's going to happen. There's a lot of turmoil going on with the world. We have a new president who's saying we're going to have tariffs. So there's a lot of challenges that our home buyers are facing right now, right? I will say that if you guys are waiting for a housing market crash, good luck on getting that, because we don't have this environment in which supply is absolutely skyrocketing. As I share with you guys, new listings are still down compared to pre-COVID levels. So if you guys are just waiting for a housing market crash, how long will you have to wait for that to happen? Eventually it'll happen sometime this year, next year, 10 years from now. I don't know. I would say though, if you guys are interested in buying a house, just be cautious. Make sure you don't overextend yourself. Align yourself with a great real estate agent in your neck of the woods, and make sure you have long-term time horizons. This has been the same advice I have been telling people for years now, though. I've been a realtor for about 12 years. Do not buy a house if you plan to sell it 1 year from now, right? You want to have long-term time horizons in which you do not plan to sell the house for about 5 to 7+ years. That way you can ride out the ebbs and flows of the housing market, because of course, our housing market changes quite a bit year to year. With that said, what do you guys see in your neck of the woods? Please like and subscribe. Have an amazing day. Of course, I appreciate you guys so much for watching today's video, and we'll see you in the next one.